Wendell Scott's Overdue victory, 1963. On December 1, 1963, Wendell Scott became the first black driver to win a NASCAR Cup Series race, but only after a contested finish. Scott wasn't flagged the winner initially. Officials crowned Buck Baker and even handed him the trophy. Hours later, a scoring recheck proved Scott had actually won by 2 laps. It's widely believed that either a clerical error or racial prejudice deprived Scott of a proper victory lane celebration. NASCAR acknowledged Scott as the winner, and he received the $1,000 winner's check, but he never received the original trophy. The family received a fan track-made replica in 2010, and NASCAR presented an official commemorative trophy to the Scott family in August 2021. This highly improbable turn of events, winning a race yet not being declared the winner until fans had left, remains a one-of-a-kind occurrence in Cup history, highlighting the era's injustices alongside Scott's perseverance. Talladega's driver boycott, 1969. The inaugural Talladega 500 in 1969 turned into perhaps NASCAR's strangest race, as most top drivers staged a safety boycott. Fearing tire failures on the new high-banked superspeedway, the Professional Drivers Association demanded postponement. When NASCAR's Bill France refused, virtually all big-name drivers, Petty, Yarborough, Pearson, etc., withdrew en masse, while a few regulars like Cale Yarborough started but exited early. NASCAR improvised by filling the field with journeymen and lower-series drivers. Richard Brickhouse, a relative unknown, wound up winning his first and only Cup race amid frequent tire-related cautions. The event, later dubbed the worst race in NASCAR history, saw compromised competition, but proved NASCAR's resolve to continue without its stars. The boycott's outcome, a one-off winner, and the Professional Drivers Association effectively collapsing soon afterward, was unprecedented and never repeated, making the 1969 Talladega 500 a true one-in-a-million anomaly. 1976. Daytona 500's wild finish. The 1976 Daytona 500 produced a finish so incredible it's often called the greatest in NASCAR lore. On the final lap, rivals Richard Petty and David Pearson collided in Turn 4 while battling for the win. Petty's Dodge spun into the infield and stalled, while Pearson's Mercury smashed the wall and limped toward the finish line. In a chaotic scene, Pearson nursed his damaged car across the finish at about 30 miles per hour to take the checkered flag. Petty's crew frantically tried to push his stricken car, but he came up just short. Pearson's wrecked machine winning by inches, after both leaders crashed within sight of the finish, is a practically unrepeatable scenario. It's the only time the top 2 wrecked on the last lap and still finished 1-2, etching a one-of-a-kind crash and coast victory in Cup history. First live TV race ends in a brawl. 1979. The 1979 Daytona 500 wasn't just another stock car race. It was the day NASCAR crashed into the national spotlight. For the first time, CBS aired a 500-mile event live, flag to flag, and a snowstorm across the country left millions of viewers glued to their TVs. What they saw was chaos, drama, and a finish for the ages. On the final lap, leaders Cale Yarborough and Donnie Allison tangled exiting Turn 2 onto the backstretch while fighting for the win. Their cars slammed into the wall, skidded into the grass, and came to rest as Richard Petty swept past in third to steal his 6th Daytona 500 victory. But the real fireworks came after the checkered flag. With cars still steaming in the infield, an enraged Yarborough confronted Donnie Allison, and when Bobby Allison pulled over to defend his brother, fists started flying. To the astonishment of a nationwide audience, CBS cameras caught the backstretch brawl in full view, helmets swinging, tempers boiling, NASCAR's reputation changing in real time. The combination of a spectacular crash, an unlikely Petty win, and a fistfight broadcast coast to coast made the 1979 Daytona 500 the first true water cooler race, a watershed moment that helped launch NASCAR into America's mainstream. Petty's 200th win with the president in attendance, 1984. On July 4, 1984, Richard Petty captured his 200th and final Cup Series victory in the Firecracker 400 at Daytona, a race that became one of the most iconic in NASCAR history. The special guest was none other than President Ronald Reagan, the first sitting U.S. president to attend a NASCAR event. Reagan gave the start command by phone from Air Force One, then landed mid-race to watch the finish in person. On the final lap, Petty edged rival Cale Yarborough by about a car length, securing a milestone no driver has come close to since. Afterward, Reagan joined Petty in victory lane, creating an unforgettable image of the president and the king together on America's birthday. To this day, It remains the only NASCAR race won with a sitting president in victory lane, cementing the moment as a one-of-a-kind celebration in both sports and American history. Million-dollar Bill makes up 2 laps. Talladega, 1985. What Bill Elliott pulled off at the 1985 Winston 500 at Talladega still defies belief. Early in the race, a loose oil fitting forced Elliott to pit under green, dropping him nearly 2 laps down on the 2.66-mile superspeedway. At a track that fast, without cautions, that deficit should have been impossible to erase. But Elliott's record-shattering Ford Thunderbird, he had qualified at 209 miles per hour, was untouchable. Turning laps about 2 seconds faster than the field, Awesome Bill methodically clawed back every inch. With only 2 cautions all day and none to aid his comeback, Elliott erased the deficit entirely under green, stormed back into the lead by lap 145, and won by 1.72 seconds over Kyle Petty. The feat remains the largest green flag comeback in NASCAR history, nearly 5 miles made up on raw speed alone. The Talladega triumph kept Elliott's run toward the Winston Million alive, a bonus he would ultimately claim later that year at Darlington. Fan steals the pace car at Talladega, 1986. Talladega has seen plenty of chaos, but nothing rivals the 1986 Winston 500 when a fan literally stole the pace car. Moments before the race start, an intoxicated 20-year-old fan named Darren Crowder snuck into the infield and saw the keys left in the Pontiac Trans Am pace car. In a scene scarcely believable, he hopped in and sped onto the track, taking off on an unauthorized lap at approximately 100 miles per hour. Astonished announcers and fans watched as police pursued the stolen pace car around the live racetrack. After nearly 2 miles, officers set a blockade in Turn 4. The joyrider wisely halted and was promptly arrested to a cheering crowd. Incredibly, this was all televised. NASCAR had never witnessed such an incident before or since, making it a true one-of-one event. The Talladega pace car heist remains an infamous, almost comical footnote in Cup history. Allison's Airborne crash spurs rule change, 1987. In the 1987 Winston 500 at Talladega, Bobby Allison survived one of NASCAR's most terrifying wrecks, a crash that changed the sport forever. Running over 210 miles per hour, Allison's Buick blew a tire on the front stretch, spun backwards, and became airborne. The car ripped into the catch fence in front of packed grandstands, tearing down a large section before slamming back onto the track. Miraculously, Allison walked away, and while several fans were injured, none suffered life-threatening wounds. The image of a stock car nearly flying into the crowd was a stark warning that speeds had grown unsustainably dangerous. In response, NASCAR mandated restrictor plates at Daytona and Talladega beginning in 1988, slashing top speeds by roughly 10 to 15 miles per hour, varied by year and conditions, and ushering in the era of pack racing. While later accidents would also influence safety, Allison's airborne crash remains one of the most consequential moments in NASCAR history, the day raw speed forced the sport to slow down. Cinderella at Daytona. Derrike Cope's upset, 1990. The 1990 Daytona 500 produced one of NASCAR's most shocking upsets. Dale Earnhardt, the sport's dominant star, seemed unbeatable, leading 155 of 200 laps and cruising toward his long-sought Daytona triumph. But on the final lap in Turn 3, disaster struck. Earnhardt's car ran over debris from Jeff Bodine's blown engine, puncturing a tire and slowing him in sight of the finish. Out of nowhere, 31-year-old Derrike Cope, a winless underdog, swept past to claim the checkered flag. It was his first career Cup win, and it came on NASCAR's biggest stage. Cope went on to win just once more in his career, underscoring how improbable the Daytona stunner was. The race is still remembered as a lightning strike moment, a last-lap twist of fate that denied Earnhardt yet again and handed Cope a place in history. More than 3 decades later, his upset remains one of the most jaw-dropping finishes in NASCAR lore. Kulwicki's Underdog Championship and the 1992 finale. The 1992 Hooters 500 at Atlanta is remembered as perhaps the greatest race in NASCAR history. It was a weekend of transitions, Richard Petty's final start, Jeff Gordon's debut, and a 6-way championship battle that came down to the wire. Against powerhouse teams, Alan Kulwicki, a Wisconsin engineer turned owner driver, wheeled his self-run Underbird into legend. Entering the finale 30 points behind Bill Elliott, Kulwicki executed a flawless fuel strategy, ensuring he led 103 laps to earn the vital 5-point bonus for most laps led. Elliott won the race, but Kulwicki's second-place finish, plus that single lap led over Elliott, gave him the title by just 10 points, the narrowest margin under NASCAR's classic scoring system. Kulwicki became the first owner-driver champion since Ned Jarrett in 1965. That distinction stood until Tony Stewart won the title as an owner-driver in 2011, with Petty bowing out, Gordon arriving, and an underdog champion crowned. The 1992 finale remains a one-of-a-kind confluence of storylines unlikely ever to be repeated. A championship tie, decided by wins, 2011. The 2011 Sprint Cup season delivered a finale unlike anything NASCAR had seen before. At Homestead Miami Speedway, Tony Stewart and Carl Edwards ended the year tied with 2,403 points, the first championship deadlock in NASCAR's modern era. By rule, the title went to the driver with the most wins. Stewart, who had entered the chase winless, caught fire and captured 5 playoff victories, while Edwards managed just 1 all season. That streak gave Stewart the championship on a tiebreaker, the first and only time the Cup title has been decided that way. The storylines made it even more improbable. Stewart had barely made the chase, then delivered one of the greatest clutch performances in NASCAR history. Edwards, despite unmatched consistency, came up agonizingly short. The fact that a 36-race season boiled down to a perfect points tie still boggles fans and historians. More than a decade later, the 2011 finale remains a one-of-a-kind championship showdown, the season where NASCAR's biggest prize was literally decided by most wins. Montoya versus the Jet Dryer, Daytona 2012. The 2012 Daytona 500 produced one of the most surreal incidents in NASCAR history. Under caution on lap 160, Juan Pablo Montoya's car suffered a rear suspension failure, sending him spinning helplessly into a jet dryer truck, clearing debris in Turn 3. The collision ruptured the dryer's fuel tank, releasing nearly 200 gallons of jet kerosene and igniting a spectacular blaze. Miraculously, both Montoya and driver Dwayne Barnes escaped serious injury, but the inferno forced a red flag lasting more than 2 hours. Crews doused flames and repaired a charred section of track, famously scrubbing fuel with Tide detergent. The race resumed late, restart under caution at 11:57 p.m. Eastern Time, and finished after midnight, with Matt Kenseth taking the win. The jet dryer crash was a never-before-seen mishap, a car colliding with track equipment and unleashing a fireball on NASCAR's biggest stage. Equal parts nightmare and spectacle, it remains one of the most unforgettable, one-of-a-kind moments in stock car racing lore. Spingate, the Richmond race-fixing scandal, 2013. NASCAR's 2013 regular season finale at Richmond turned into one of the sport's most infamous scandals, Spingate. With a chase berth at stake, Michael Waltrip Racing manipulated the race's closing laps. With 7 laps to go, Clint Bowyer spun in Turn 4 under circumstances that later drew scrutiny, though NASCAR said it could not conclusively prove Bowyer intentionally spun. His radio chatter, "Is your arm starting to hurt? Is it itchy?" fueled suspicions the spin was deliberate. MWR later said Bowyer had been treated for poison oak. Meanwhile, teammate Brian Vickers was ordered to pit late, helping teammate Martin Truex Jr. climb the standings. The scheme reshuffled the playoff picture. Ryan Newman was denied a win, Jeff Gordon was bumped out, and Truex initially made the chase. NASCAR's swift investigation concluded that MWR had manipulated the outcome, issuing an unprecedented penalty: a $300,000 fine, 50-point deductions for all 3 cars, and Truex's removal from the playoffs. Days later, officials took the extraordinary step of adding Jeff Gordon as a 13th chase driver for fairness. The episode remains one of NASCAR's biggest black eyes, a blatant attempt at orchestrating a race finish. In the decades since, no manipulation scandal has matched Spingate's brazenness, cementing its place as a cautionary tale in stock car history. Bubba Wallace makes history in the rain, 2021. On October 4, 2021, Bubba Wallace made history in the Yellowwood 500 at Talladega. In a race delayed and shortened by rain, Wallace grabbed the lead just before weather halted the action on lap 117 of 188. After a tense 45-minute red flag, NASCAR declared the race official, giving Wallace his first Cup victory. The moment was monumental. Wallace, in his 143rd start, became only the second black driver to win at NASCAR's top level, and the first since Wendell Scott's 1963 triumph, nearly 58 years earlier. Driving the number 23 Toyota for 2311 Racing, co-owned by Michael Jordan, Wallace sat anxiously in his car hoping the skies wouldn't clear. When officials confirmed the win, he broke down in tears as his team and fans cheered behind pit road. The significance went beyond racing. In late August 2021, NASCAR presented Wendell Scott's family with a commemorative trophy honoring his 1963 win, and Wallace's Talladega victory felt like a new chapter in that legacy. A rain-shortened but hard-fought triumph, it was a landmark cultural milestone for the sport, a moment of progress and symbolism NASCAR had never seen in its modern era. The first winner disqualified after 62 years, Pocono 2022. On July 24, 2022, the Cup Series saw something that hadn't happened in more than 6 decades. The apparent race winner was disqualified. At Pocono, Denny Hamlin took the checkered flag and Kyle Busch ran second. But post-race inspection uncovered illegal tape under the vinyl wrap on both Joe Gibbs racing cars' front fascias. In a stunning move, NASCAR disqualified both finishers, stripping Hamlin of what would have been his 49th career win and elevating Chase Elliott, who had finished third and never led a lap, to the victory. It marked the first time since 1960 that a Cup race winner was tossed for a rules violation. NASCAR introduced a tougher post-race inspection model in 2019 that allowed race-winning cars to be disqualified. Pocono 2022 was the first high-profile Cup-level enforcement of that policy. The unprecedented sight of the top 2 being erased from the results shocked the garage and fans alike. Elliott admitted it felt strange to inherit the win, but history was made regardless. The Pocono double DQ remains one of the most unusual officiating decisions in modern NASCAR, a reminder that under the next-gen car rules, no result is safe until the inspection line clears it. Ross Chastain's Video Game Wall-Ride, 2022. On October 30th, 2022, Ross Chastain pulled off a move so outrageous it instantly became legend, and then was outlawed. On the last lap of the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville, needing points to make the championship 4, Chastain pinned his number 1 Chevrolet against the outside wall in turns 3 to 4 and kept it wide open. In a move that looked like a video game glitch, he blasted past 5 cars, jumping from 10th to 5th in seconds and snatching the final playoff spot away from Denny Hamlin by just 4 points. Chastain's final lap set a new Martinsville Cup Class lap record at 18.845 seconds, a 100.5 miles per hour average. Physics analyses later estimated he may have reached approximately 122 miles per hour at one instant entering the turn and experienced up to nearly 5 Gs, but those are analyst estimates rather than directly published telemetry. The Hail Melon shocked drivers and fans alike, going viral worldwide. While NASCAR let the results stand, officials later cited safety concerns and officially banned wall riding maneuvers for 2023 and beyond. The Martinsville wall ride was a perfect storm of timing, desperation, and physics. A once-in-history gamble that worked. Since the move is now illegal, Chastain's daring stunt will forever remain a one-of-a-kind moment in NASCAR lore. A rookie wins on debut. Street Course Stunner, 2023. On July 2, 2023, the NASCAR Cup Series staged its first ever street race on the downtown roads of Chicago and witnessed one of the sport's most improbable victories. Shane Van Gisbergen, a 3-time Australian Supercars champion, had never run a Cup race before climbing into Trackhouse Racing's Project 91 entry that weekend. Yet on a rain-slicked, concrete-lined street course, he drove with breathtaking precision. From deep in the pack, SVG carved through the field and executed decisive late passes, ultimately beating established stars like Justin Haley and Chase Elliott. With the victory, Van Gisbergen became the first driver to win a NASCAR Cup Series race in his first Cup start since Johnny Rutherford in 1963. Rutherford's 1963 qualifying race counted in points then. He was also widely reported as the first road course ringer to win a one-off Cup start since Mark Donohue at Riverside in 1973. The magnitude of the feat was historic. A rookie debut, a brand new street venue, and a driver from outside NASCAR's traditional pipeline conquering America's stock car elite. Van Gisbergen's triumph wasn't just an upset. It was a milestone that showcased NASCAR's unpredictability and global reach, instantly enshrining his name in racing lore. We've covered Wendell Scott's overdue win, the Talladega boycott, and Pearson's crash and coast at Daytona. But what's your favorite once-in-a-lifetime NASCAR moment? Share it below. Thank you for watching the NASCAR Explainer.